Alrighty, I've got a quick video for you today. I just started working on a sketch the other night, just from reference, and I decided to screen record it. So my main goal was just do a portrait painting in an oil process, I guess. So I started out with a simple sketch, and then I'm just going to kind of tone the background and start blocking in my shadows. You can see, like, when I'm sketching, I start with one layer and then kind of drop the opacity and throw another one on top and then kind of merge them. So right now I have a background layer and a sketch layer, and I'm painting under the background layer just so I don't lose my lines yet. Eventually I'll just flatten it all. But my goal first is to just put in some dark shadows. One cool thing about Art Studio Pro is you can turn your reference from grayscale to color. If you hit those three dots in the reference section there, super handy. I use it all the time. But I'm just picking out like the big shadow shapes right now and trying to kind of knock those in. All right, now I'm going in with more of a mid-tone, and I'm going to kind of just work my way up from dark to light. And since the darks are in, I'm going to try just to leave those alone and just focus on really working on the highlight areas. I am working on the new iPad, and I don't know if I've talked about this yet, but the barrel roll is really kind of a game changer for me. It kind of lets me paint like I have a flat oil brush, which is super sick. And the brush I'm using, I made, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, and it's just it's a paintbrush, but it's super opaque, so it almost feels like a gouache paint or something. Like you're not putting down like thin, like blendy strokes. It's just kind of like big chunky bits, but if I push really lightly, I can put in kind of a softer blend. So I'm kind of working my way up to more of that skin color. I put in some random colors that are kind of under the skin, like a little more yellow on the forehead, a little more blue around the eye sockets, pink around the cheeks, stuff like that. And I think it's okay not to have like a correct skin tone, because it's all relative really, and you can really make the colors whatever you want as long as you kind of get the values correct. So the more important thing is the values. So I wouldn't focus too much on the colors. Just think about how can I make the values correct, and it'll end up working. Even you can tell on the rim light there, I'm sort of making it a colder, bluer, purpley color. Like the reference is still pretty warm, but I just thought it'd be cool. I'm kind of working at like almost little patches of color. So when I pick a color, I kind of put it all over the face and see where it can fit, and just kind of adjusting as I go. Every once in a while I'll put in an airbrush, or I'll turn on the airbrush and do like, some softer areas if it's getting a little too crusty. I feel like anytime you paint a female face, it gets a little harder because they're inherently like, softer, smoother looking. And if you add in hard edges, they start to look older. And so if you want them, like to be like a decently attractive person still, when it's done, it's a little tricky to paint. So I think that's probably why I tend to paint more uglier things in general, because I think it's easier, and it's sometimes a little more fun because you can be a little bit more expressive with your brush strokes. Really thinking about the forms of the face too, and how things are like rolling in 3 dimensions. I'm not just trying to copy shapes, but I'm thinking about, especially like look in the eye. It's like, well, you have areas that are curving up and down, and that's what I'm thinking about with those little shadows, like which areas are popping forward versus rolling backwards. Just trying to think about 3D and keep your paint strokes in 3D is makes a big difference. Another nice thing always is flipping your canvas. It's one of the best parts about digital art. Well, if you're painting traditionally, you can always use a mirror, and it has the same effect. But it's nice to be able to flip your reference as well. I'm not trying to do anything super polished or detailed or realistic. I kind of want to keep it as loose as I can. My thought is to do the most with the least, right? Like, how can I make this look good with the least amount of brush strokes and rendering? Because at some point it starts to really tighten up and feel stiff. Right here I've decided that like I kind of made the bottom half of her head too long, like it's not tilted forward enough. So I'm adjusting that mostly with like a liquify tool. I kind of slid her eyes down as well to give her like a little more forehead. It's still not like a great likeness, but you know, it's just a sketch for fun. So, and I did all this pretty much on one layer. I would go through, you can tell like if you see right there, I have a bunch of them. What I do is I duplicate my layer before I do something potentially stupid, and then I draw on top of that, and then I have the duplicated layer underneath kind of as a safety net, right? So if I decide, oh, I really messed up, well, I can either delete the layer I'm working on, or I can just lasso out a chunk from the layer underneath and like paste it on top, because you know, undos don't last forever, and so that's just a way to get like a safety net if you want to just work on one layer. So, which a lot of the times I do with personal stuff. Commercial work, that's different just because you need the layers for revisions and possible adjustments and stuff. But when it's just for me, I don't like to think about all the layers and stuff. So, and just at the end here, I have an overlay layer where I'm adding in some extra pops of color to kind of add some saturation into the shadows and the skin tones to make it feel a little more lifelike. That's pretty much it though. I mean, one or two brushes, simple paint brushes. If you haven't used Art Studio Pro, I would definitely suggest checking it out. It's super cheap, well worth it. So yeah, I think that's going to do it for this image. Yeah. So thanks for checking it out, and I'll see you next time.